Hello and welcome to Thursday afternoons live at Epiphan. This is episode 21, and we have some interesting things to talk about today. We have an array of toys on the table, and we'll take a closer look at some of those. We're also wearing some goofy glasses, and we'll mention why that is too. So what is our main topics today, Dan?
So we've got two topics. The first one we're going to jump into is we're actually going to talk a little bit about this. This is an HDMI audio inserter, which could help you getting pro audio into your Webcaster X2. So we'll talk about that. And then a very interesting topic that I know a lot of you are probably already aware of and interested in. It's being billed as the Great American Eclipse.
Eclipse of the century.
The eclipse of the century in North America, asterisk. So we're going to be talking all about it, how to live stream it, how to view it safely, and some interesting information about the eclipse. So stay tuned for that. But first, anything else?
Well, the usual, like, subscribe, follow, all those things. If you have any questions, put them into the chat comments, and especially about those topics we're going to be talking about. I think there's a lot to cover there. So if we miss anything that you're interested in, definitely throw the questions in there, and we'll get to those. I guess to kick it off, we want to talk about the audio inserter. So regular viewers of this show know that we talk all about, how to get audio into something like Webcaster or some other similar devices, what cameras to use. We've covered things like the Canon C100 Mark II, which has XLR inputs, and then run everything through HDMI into a Webcaster. Well, what if you don't have a $5,000 C100? Then what? So this is my personal Nikon D3200, old kind of camera that, it's kind of mostly just kicking around these days. An older camera like this, a DSLR, and many, many DSLRs, especially in the consumer level space, like the D3200 or the Canon Rebel series, those types of cameras, most of them, if they even provide clean HDMI output, oftentimes don't provide HDMI audio, even if they have an auxiliary audio input, which this one does.
So does this camera output audio over the HDMI?
Not live.
Oh,
If you're playing back recorded content, yes. But if I'm trying to use this as a video camera with a live output, it will give me clean live, but no audio. So if I wanted to use this with something like the Webcaster, I basically would have no audio.
Yeah, you need a way to get audio onto this HDMI signal.
Exactly. I mean, I have a shotgun mic for this camera that just plugs into its regular mic input, but it still doesn't go through.
Right.
It doesn't pass it through.
It's for recording only, not for live.
Exactly. So the challenge is, what do you do? And so what we wanted to cover today was this little box. Not sponsored, but this is from Monoprice. So cheap and easy to get. What this box does is takes your HDMI input. So in this case, I would take the HDMI out from my camera into the back of the inserter. And then I have a couple of audio options. The primary one we're going to look at is a 3.5 millimeter TRS jack.
Okay.
So with that, I can basically take audio from any analog source. So I could take, for example, a cable like this guy, XLR to 3.5 mil, plug that into the back, and then maybe this XLR is plugged into the wireless base station of a lav mic or basically anything else. Now, I mean, it is going to have to be line level, not mic level, because this doesn't have any amplification. But if we're coming out of something that's amplified, even a mixer board, if you have one, no problem. I can then take that analog audio, it combines it with my HDMI audio. I take the HDMI output from here. I probably have some other random cables laying here. I can take that and basically build my little bridge over into the Webcaster. So it's a few more pieces to put together, but what it means is that I can now successfully use my DSLR, which obviously with different lens options, we've covered this many times in some other episodes about why interchangeable lens cameras can be superior to fixed things, because you get options, especially if you're looking for certain artistic flair. Even though it's lacking in the audio department. With a box like this,
You can bring in audio from anywhere. You could have like a 2-channel mixer on your desk. You could use a professional audio board. You could use a powered microphone.
Right.
So there's a lot of ways. There's even an optical audio input on this as well, I noticed.
Yeah, which is kind of odd. I don't really know too many people who use optical
Maybe
anymore,
for a home
but
theater setup of some
that's
kind.
really the only place you do see it.
Yeah.
The nice part is this thing's about $40. It is a metal casing, so it's durable as well.
Actually, why don't we pull up the picture-in-picture, Lisa? 'Cause
Sure.
I've got the, this is the on mono price. So yeah, this is where we got it.
Yeah.
Look around, maybe there's other options as well, but I tested it a few days ago actually with a camera here in the studio. I hooked up my DSLR and brought in an audio source and it worked great.
Because you have the 5D, right? And it has the same issue.
Yes, exactly. Right. So, you know,
so
it's just another way to get professional sounding audio onto your live stream.
While still using maybe some older camera kit that you have kicking around.
Yeah, I mean, in our case, when we're using the C100, we have XLR inputs.
Right.
So,
but again, it's specifically a cinema style camera. It's designed for this. Whereas if you're trying to use a DSLR, it's the major drawback to the DSLR is that so many of them don't have those options. This little box, it gives you that flexibility to add that in easily.
So do you have any recommendations for people to make sure of what their camera's HDMI output is? I guess just test it, right? Plug it into a TV or something.
That's the easiest way to test is plug it into a TV with HDMI. Don't play back a recorded file because that's not a fair test. You know, with something like the D3200, I actually have to turn on the live LCD screen on the back in order for it to show that HDMI preview. You can't just leave the viewfinder on. You have to turn on the live screen. But once that's there, if that's going through to a TV that has speakers, that's replicating essentially what something like a Webcaster does. So if your TV is going to get live, clean video and audio, you're good to go. If you're only getting, you know, overlays and no audio, find a different camera, unfortunately.
Very cool. So, I mean, that's awesome. Cool solution to get professional audio onto your HDMI signal if you need it. And $40, give or take.
Yeah, small, lightweight, but like I said, made of metal, so it's still durable. It'll throw in a bag and travel pretty easy.
Very, very cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well,
so if you guys have any questions about that setup, throw them in there.
Yeah, absolutely. We're monitoring chat, so if you have any questions or you want to throw a question our way, you just go right ahead and chat, and we'll...
We have one already, which is the name and model number of the audio inserter. So, Lisa, if we could go back to that picture.
I'll go to picture-in-picture.
We'll bring that up again. Like I say, it's a mono price. It's the Blackbird, whatever. I don't know what model number it is, but...
Product number 13347 on mono price. Yeah. So, we'll put a link in the show notes after the show, but...
But that's one of many. I mean, there's lots of devices like this. Everyone knows mono price, and it's a pretty reasonably priced item there. So, you can definitely check that out.
Okay, very cool.
I'll take another look, but while I look at other questions, I'll pass it over to you, Dan, and maybe we can take a look at...
So I mean, we're here in if you look behind us, a beautiful view of the Nashville skyline. And the reason we're in Nashville, I love Nashville, by the way, great city. The reason we're here right now, I can't see through these. The reason we're here in Nashville is if you see over George's shoulder, we're now entering the final stages of the path of totality. And what is the path of totality? Well, the path of totality is it's a 100-mile wide area where the eclipse will be passing through. The solar eclipse will be a total solar eclipse. So the sun will be completely blocked out by the shadow of the moon. And if you're within that 100-mile line, you're going to have a rare, once-in-a-lifetime, really, chance to see one of the greatest celestial events that you can possibly witness. So why don't I pull it up here? We can go to picture-in-picture again. I've got, this is from NASA. So this shows the path of totality for the eclipse. So take a look here. It actually has, various times where the eclipse will be at certain times. We're here in Ottawa, Canada, so we're
nowhere near.
Unfortunately, not anywhere near the path of totality, but we still will be getting approximately like a
68, 70%, something like that.
Yeah, like we'll have a crescent sun for a certain period of time. I think about 2:30 in the afternoon on Monday. But for many of you who are going to be closer to this path of totality, if you have the chance and are close enough to get into the path of totality, highly suggest you do it because it will be an awe-inspiring, once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. In fact, there hasn't been an eclipse, a total solar eclipse, touch the United States mainland in 38 years.
Yeah, and that's A while.
I was doing some other research, so I'll just give you some Eclipse nerd factoids here. So, if you can't make it to the path of totality right now, you could just stay exactly where you are, because probably about once every 380 years, any given location on the planet will be in the shadow of the moon, complete darkness.
So you're saying I can wait?
Yeah, you can wait. You might be waiting for a while though. So when the eclipse actually happens, the moon will completely block out the sun for about 174 seconds, and that area is called it's called the umbra. It's the place where, and actually I think I've got a picture here to give you some idea of how this works, but we'll take a look here.
So, I'm getting really nerdy now.
Yeah, I'll just move this over so it's a bit easier to see. But basically, there's two shadows. There's the partial shadow, which is basically a partial eclipse. That's what we'll be seeing here in Ontario, Canada. But if you're on that line of path of totality, you might actually be in the umbra, which is the full shadow, which is where you have a unique opportunity to witness the total eclipse. And when the eclipse is in its total state, it's an incredible, awe-inspiring sight, from what I understand in the research I've done.
Well, I remember one passing over where, near where I grew up when I was a kid. I unfortunately missed it, because one of the things about these is, as cool as they are and as neat as they are, there is a little bit of a risk involved as well. And I know you had some notes about staying safe during these things.
Exactly.
It can be very important if you are making the effort to go to that path of totality
yeah, or anywhere really. Even here, you shouldn't stare at the sun in any case,
ever.
But ever. What happens is actually there's infrared radiation that will actually cook the retina of your eye. And the problem is that the human eye doesn't have pain receptors in the optic nerve, so you actually don't realize that
you're burning your eyes.
You're burning your eye. And in fact, what happens is there's a term called eclipse blindness, and what actually happens is, people will look at the eclipse and think that they're fine and go home and everything will be normal, but then the next morning wake up and not be able to see anything. So if you are going to want to go outside and take a look at the eclipse, what you need is a pair of eclipse sunglasses, just like these. Now these are not your ordinary polarized glasses. Just to give you some idea, when we're wearing these, we can't see anything. Not even the studio lights.
I can stare straight at the studio lights, and it's just solid black.
Yeah.
There's nothing.
So what you need to do to make sure you've got the proper Eclipse glasses is you need to actually look for the safety rating on it. And I think there's actually a safety rating. It's called ISO 12312. Long story short, that's what is going to guarantee that you're safe. And you need to be careful too, because there's a lot of people, unfortunately, trying to take advantage of the situation and sell knockoff solar glasses that do nothing. So when the eclipse is in its partial form, you need to be wearing these if you're going to look at it. If you are on the path of totality, when you're looking at when the eclipse is in total eclipse, you can actually take these off.
Right.
And you have about 174 seconds, 3 minutes, give or take, when the sun is fully eclipsed, that you can take these off and witness it with your bare eyes. During that total eclipse, it's going to be some incredible visuals. So I've got an image here. If you take a look, this is what we call the sun's corona. So you're actually seeing like the electromagnetic radiation, which is radiating out of the sun, and you can't see this ordinarily, but during a total solar eclipse you can. And
now, I'm not taking this picture with my iPhone though, right?
That's a good question. So this is going to be probably one of the most photographed and live streamed events ever, certainly.
That's the age we live in, right? I mean,
right.
That's the way it's going to be.
So
sure.
A lot of people are going to be taking out their phones and their camera phones, and other people live streaming it and want to capture this event as it takes place. So we thought we'd share some sort of practical tips and advice. So one of the main questions that we've gotten leading up to this is it safe for my camera? If you, for example, George, you've got your DSLR here.
Yeah.
Is it safe to take a photo with a DSLR? The short answer is no. You can risk damaging the sensor of your camera. So what you actually need is a solar filter that you put on your lens. And what a solar filter does is it actually blocks not only the visible light spectrum, but also the infrared and ultraviolet light spectrum. So what I have here is like, this is a polarized filter that, you know, I use with my DSLR in bright sunlight, and it works great. The problem is that this doesn't actually, this is only an ND filter, not a solar filter. So this doesn't block the ultraviolet and
So there is a
infrared.
big difference.
There is a difference. Now, to be perfectly honest, many people use these ND filters and can get good results photographing.
Right. But so that's good enough for a camera, but not good enough for the human eye.
No, exactly, and that's the problem. So it's interesting, this week Amazon was actually selling Lee filters, which is a very popular filter maker, and they have a solar filter that they were selling for photography. And Amazon actually stopped selling these and refunded them because unfortunately people are a little bit ill-informed on the topic. And what happens with a DSLR camera is if you're using the optical viewfinder on a DSLR, you're actually looking at you're not looking at a viewfinder, you're looking at a reflected light.
Right.
So basically what you're doing is putting a magnifying glass, a lens, up to the sun and streaming that directly into the retina of your eye, which is extremely dangerous. So if you're only using an ND filter, that's a big no-no because even though it doesn't look bright, there's still that ultraviolet and infrared radiation reflecting off the mirror inside your DSLR. So make sure if you are going to use a DSLR with an optical viewfinder, you need to use a proper solar filter.
Okay.
And a proper solar filter has anywhere from like about 15 to 22 stops of neutral density of light reduction. So
another option, I guess, if I don't want to, look through a microscope at the sun, if I just use the screen, is that okay?
Perfectly fine.
Okay. So I could turn on the rear screen and use that.
Yeah, I would recommend using the electronic viewfinder on your device.
Of course, with these things on, I wouldn't be able to see my camera anyways. But
Now, a lot of people are also asking, like, am I risking damaging my camera by shooting this? Quite frankly, do your research. I'm not going to tell you for your camera what's safe and what's not. But Apple actually did this week. A lot of people were asking, I'll pull up the article here. A lot of people were asking, do I need a filter for my iPhone if I want to just snap a quick photo? Apple has come out and said no. And the reason for that, I believe, is because the sensor size and the lens size in something like a cell phone is so small that there's actually not that much light being magnified onto the sensor, and the sensor is small enough. The other thing is camera phones are very wide lenses, so the sun is only going to be a dot.
And there's typically no optical zoom to magnify or anything like that.
Right, you only have a digital zoom. Which actually brings us to our next point, which is, how do you actually photograph this thing? With your camera phone or trying to stream with your camera, to be honest, you're not going to get a very great photo. So NASA actually, I'll show you this as well. NASA actually released a guide on, first of all, go to the NASA website for the Eclipse.
There's a ton of information.
Yeah, so NASA has like a landing page here with everything you need to know. It's got links to watch live streams. It's got the science behind it. It's got, all kinds of locations where you can go and get these glasses for free. A lot of libraries and museums are going to be giving these away. So go to the NASA website to find everything you need to find. The other thing that they do is they have a portion of their website where they make some recommendations for, let me see if I can find it here. Oh, here it is, for photography.
Okay.
With your digital phone, with like your phone, you're probably going to get something like this. And once you digitally zoom in on,
it's just going to be chunks.
yeah, you're not going to see much.
Right.
So what I would actually recommend is there's going to be millions of people who are using professional telescopic photography equipment to photograph the actual the sun and
We were
and moon
talking
itself.
about this the other day because, like a lot of people, I have a very basic telephoto for this camera, but realistically, it's not even going to do anything compared to what you really need to get a good shot.
On a full frame DSLR sensor, to get a nice framed photo of the sun, you need something in the area of like a 1,000mm lens. What do we have here? Some recommendations. Yeah, so they're recommending, if you want to actually have a nice framed photo, you need to be using like at least a 1400 millimeter lens or a teleconverter to create a 1400 millimeter.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah, so it's basically you almost need a telescope on the front to get that nice frame photo. So what I would recommend is if you're just looking to grab some of the excitement, leave the telescopic photography to the experts, because they'll capture it better than you can, and you can watch it. You can stream it on hundreds of websites.
Right.
Instead, what I would recommend, if you're going to do a live stream, if you are in the path of totality, capture the horizon, capture the people. It's going to become night in the middle of daytime for 3 minutes.
Get all the people standing there with their goofy glasses on.
Exactly. And I mean, I was just cruising YouTube earlier and taking a look at some of what other people have captured in past solar eclipses. This is a great one from Patagonia. And you see the horizon here. It just looks absolutely incredible, because when you're in the umbra, you can still see on the horizon where there is light. So it looks incredible. The other thing is, during all phases of the eclipse, shadows will take on different textures. Shadows actually become sharper because the light is less diffused. There's lots of optical anomalies that will be happening. So take a look at some of those that you can capture, or capture the ambiance of the crowd and people witnessing this event. And what I would recommend is, if you only have 3 minutes, why not experience it? Set up a camera on a tripod that you can capture the crowd and the horizon and, some of the shadows.
And then sit back and enjoy.
It for that 3 minutes. It's really a once in a lifetime opportunity. So
you mentioned a lot of people it's anticipated that a lot of people are going to be live streaming this, including, I'm sure, every news outlet, NASA themselves, a bunch of other places are going to be doing live streams of this. So, even if you're well outside the area, you can still witness some of it.
Yeah, so, CNN, the CNN one looks interesting to me, and I might check it out, because they're apparently going to be doing a 360 live stream using some fancy cameras. Now, speaking of, just so I'll put a note here, we're going to be looking at 360 video in the future, so stay tuned to this show, because we're going to be talking about that. But CNN live stream might be cool. I would also really just recommend the NASA live stream, because they're the pros. They understand this the best. They've been planning for it for a very long time.
Yeah, they're going to have some good stuff.
Check out the NASA. CNN, again, I believe Twitter is going to have some. There's also, if you want to stay up to date on everything that's happening and plan for this event, there's a lot of great apps you can actually download. So I'll recommend a few of them. There's one called Solar Eclipse Timer, and it's actually a GPS app. So if you download this app onto your phone, it knows your location, and it will give you audio prompts during the various phases of the eclipse. There's also a Berkeley app. Berkeley University has an app called the Eclipse Megamovie project, where they're encouraging people to share their videos and photos. Another one that I thought was pretty cool is actually there's a NASA Globe Observer app, where they're asking all of us citizens to, for this incredible moment, to become scientists and share our observations related to weather and clouds and temperatures. There's all kinds of scientific observations that are being made at this during this very unique celestial event. So check out some of the apps. Another one that I thought looked cool was it's called the Exploratorium's Solar Eclipse app, and it's going to have some of the telescope live streams from Wyoming and Oregon. So if you want to see those really high quality telescopic views of the sun and moon itself, that might be a good one to check out.
So I was going to look at some questions, and we've actually been getting mostly questions from our previous topic as opposed to the eclipse, but that's okay. One of them here was specifically just about Webcaster, asking about Webcaster's compatibility with Workplace from Facebook. Currently, no. The reason for that is that Facebook has not implemented the live streaming API into Workplace Facebook yet. We've been told that eventually that will happen. So the reason why it doesn't currently support that is they just haven't built the API in there yet. So we're waiting on Facebook to do that, and then there's absolutely no reason why it wouldn't work. Another one is about this cable we are playing with, from the Blackbird to XLR. So this one is male to male, male XLR to male 3.5 mil. I don't know a brand or model for this particular cable. This is one that we have in our box of stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm sure, I mean, it's just a common male XLR to male 3.5 mil, so should be pretty
You could get
easy.
a female as well if that's what you need.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what device you're plugging in XLR side, if it's a board or something else.
Yeah, it really depends where do you need to get your audio from? Is it coming from a board or is it coming from a mixer?
Right.
So depending on that,
Exactly.
you can always find the cable that you need.
Yeah, exactly.
Check Monoprice; they're pretty good for those cables.
Yeah. There was a question here about, I believe it was asking about purchasing the Blackbird in their particular region. I can't speak for Monoprice, so unfortunately I don't know whether or not it's possible to get the Monoprice audio inserter in particular in your region. I don't know. You'd have to talk to Monoprice about that. So that's all the questions I have in front of me at the moment. So again, coming back to some of the live streaming about the Eclipse and sort of, I guess, one of the whole purposes of this show week after week is talking about live streaming and how it's used. And I guess it's becoming sort of a normal part of day-to-day life, which is really interesting. The Eclipse is going to be a great example of lots of people doing it, lots of outlets doing it, and making it very easy for people to participate where they might not otherwise. Certainly, like we were saying earlier, the last one I remember when I was a kid, I missed out because if you didn't have the equipment, I was in school that day. If you didn't have the equipment, you had to stay in the basement so that you avoided the risk.
Or if you're not in the right location. I mean, the path of totality is only 100 miles wide. So if you can't get to there, how are you gonna get some idea of what it's like? So it's pretty cool that so many thousands and tens of thousands of people are going to be witnessing this event, and I think it's a great opportunity for everyone to interact and also just to sort of put everything into perspective. Where we all live on this shared planet, and this is a once in a lifetime event. So
it's good to have a shared experience.
Yeah.
I think it also, again, not to beat a dead horse on this, but the power of live streaming, right? We talk about that all the time on this show. There was some other interesting live streaming news this week, which I found a little bit funny in some ways because it was coming from a band who's known to not exactly play necessarily tech-friendly. But streaming is big, and it's making a major impact when a band like Metallica is doing a live concert stream on YouTube Live. Their last North American tour date in Edmonton, Alberta, they live streamed the entire concert. When these guys are doing this, don't get me wrong, I greatly appreciate Metallica's music, but as a tech guy, I don't appreciate their past.
Yeah, I'm not going to play too much of their YouTube video
because we'll hear from the lawyers pretty quick.
We'll be paying royalties very quickly.
But when these guys are doing a live stream of an entire concert, how many? When I looked earlier, the views were in the hundreds of thousands. I think.
So this streamed last night in Edmonton, and it already has 350,000 views.
Right,
in less than 24 hours.
And they didn't promote this, from what I know. So
Not really, it just went out to their YouTube channel.
That's amazing. That's fantastic, and big congratulations to Metallica for doing that. Because again, that crowd was huge. It was in the football stadium, massive crowd. They got an even bigger crowd online watching this Eclipse. We're going to have these massive groups of people participating and being able to share that experience without having to physically be there. So it's what an age we live in.
It is amazing, and I think this is something that's going to become much more common throughout the coming year. Live streaming is a huge trend right now, and as people learn the technology and learn how to use it, and the cameras are getting more affordable and more pervasive than ever before, it's becoming easier and easier for average folks to do their own great live streams, and that's kind of
what we've been trying to do our part by
creating
devices to make it easy. So
another thing that we want to do here on the show is make it about you guys, the viewers. I mean, we want to bring you information that's useful, things that you can apply to your own projects. So interact with us. Let us know what you want to learn, and we'll do our best to try to brush up on the topics and bring you the information that you're looking for.
So definitely submit those suggestions either in the comments, in chat, send us an email, live@epiphan.com as always, and we'd love to integrate some of your ideas into the show. Next week we have a little bit of an interesting one. It's a little bit of a different shift, It's a mix of, I guess, live streaming with, well, it's particularly about using Skype in conjunction with live streaming appliances, and in particular, we're framing that with our Pearl 2 device. You know, it used to be back in the day that it was joining us by satellite is so-and-so for a remote interview. Basically, everyone does that by Skype now because it's so easy and it's cheap. So what if you needed someone to join you by Skype for a show like this? And so that's what we're going to be talking about next week. So take a look for that. I think that one's going to be an interesting one. It'll be pretty technical, but it should be an interesting one.
Yeah, and I think that's probably where we'll leave things off today. Let us know if you're going to be, what are you going to, leave a comment even after the live show. Are you going to be viewing the Eclipse? Where are you located? Are you near the path of totality? Can you get there? Share your clips with us. We'd love to see what you can capture during this rare event. And as always, you know, send us your comments and suggestions. We'd love to see what you're up to as well. So for us here in the studio, I think we'll wrap it up there. So see you next Thursday at same time, 3 p.m. Eastern. Until then, I'm Dan.
I'm George.
So long.